everyone that's joining to watch this live or catching up with the recording after. I'm really excited for this episode of Meet the Teachers. You guys have sent in some awesome questions for Harriette, and I cannot wait to see what she has to tell us about her life. And it'll be really nice just to kind of chat and get a bit more insight into what Harriette gets up to beyond the mat. So I'm going to kick us off, Harriette, with a question from Jane. She wants to know what your favourite yoga class is to teach for the Frog Project. And she said that her favourite class is the 6 p.m. nurture. She said it's a perfect way to start the weekend. So I thought it was a lovely question to start with. Which is your favourite Frog Project class to teach?
Do you know what? I mostly teach, I was teaching Spicy and then the Nurtures. And I like them both for different reasons. Because Spicy pushes me because it's a harder class and you have to do it whilst you're sort of teaching and doing it. And so often I have to like just mentally psych myself up a little bit for a Spicy class. But then it feels really good when you've done it. So it's kind of like that thing of, oh, it's a bit challenging, but then it's really good once you've done it. Whereas Nurture, like I love the Friday night Nurture, like it really sets me up for the weekend. Like, so that feels just like this, and hopefully to other people as well, but just like a really nice hug. And I get to do the whole thing with everybody as well. So that just feels like a really massive treat. And as soon as it starts getting dark, the thought of like going out after a nurture class on a Friday at like 7 o'clock, it's like, no way, it's way too late to go out. So it's like a proper, like, just set the tone to like cuddle up and have some dinner. Normally my partner's cooking dinner whilst we're doing class as well. So that's a bonus. I get dinner when I finish. So yeah, I like them both for different reasons. Yeah, so I'd say.
Great, good answer. Yeah, it's so nice. The nurture class is just such a perfect way to finish the week, and I think whether you're attending it or whether you're teaching it, you just kind of want to hold on to that lovely, nourishing feeling that you come to the end of the class with. I'll have to come along to one of yours sometime soon. It's perfect for autumn, especially, I think. The next question that I've got for you is from Ruth. She's got a couple of questions for you, actually. She wants to know where you grew up because she cannot place your accent. And I think that you told me a little bit about this when we met each other on the retreat. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later on in the interview, I think. But yeah, so Ruth's first question, where's your accent from? Where did you grow up? And her second question was about another trip that you took recently. She wants to know more about the highlights of the big holiday, the big adventure you had.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So the accent side of things, well, I live in Birmingham and clearly I haven't got the Birmingham accent. I do love it. I love the Birmingham accent, how it says Harriette as well. It pronounces every single letter in my name, which I just absolutely love. But my childhood, my dad was in the army, so we always moved around. So we lived all over England, all over Scotland. We lived in Gibraltar, we lived in Hong Kong. And so I guess I just have a sort of generic kind of South-ish sort of accent. And I do find if I go on holiday, like to America, I'll pick up a twang. I'm sure if I went to Australia, I'd pick up a bit of a twang as well. But yeah, aside from that, I think it's sort of just a generic-y sort of Britishness to my accent, I think.
So you kind of, are you one of those people that almost absorbs other people's accent, like the accent that's around you a little bit?
Yeah, I've only been to America a couple of times, and every time I go, I'll notice I start to drop my T's a little bit more, and you just sort of slide into it. And I have read and seen sort of people talk about it and how it's a guise to try and sort of fit in and be accepted. So yeah, I've noticed that I do have that trait in myself, but yeah, I guess fundamentally I sort of stick true to sort of that sort of classic English accent.
So what about, tell us a little bit more about the specific journey, the specific trip that you took recently. It doesn't feel that recent anymore, but when was it, Harriette?
So we basically went away for the whole of August. We took sort of 5 and a bit, 6-ish weeks out to go and travel in Vietnam. And yeah, that was our sort of goal last year. So myself and my partner, we wanted to be able to take a month off. And I made a mistake when I booked our flights. So we had to take an extra week, which was fine. And like a happy mistake to have made. So yeah, so we traveled into the south of Vietnam, into Ho Chi Minh, and then we went all the way north to Hanoi, and then back down to the south to an island, which we didn't know was not the best time to go to the island because it was kind of rainy season, but we still had a really lovely time. And yeah, it was fascinating. It's a really fast developing place, I think. So I think if anyone's got any ambition to go to Vietnam, I would definitely recommend go as soon as possible, because it seems to be changing really quickly. I mean, that island that I mentioned, Phu Quoc, that we went to at the end, 10 years ago, they didn't have electricity. So that's kind of like just how quickly it's changing. And now it's like this big sort of almost resorty kind of destination. So it's kind of like on this path. But we found the people to be fantastic, really friendly, open, helpful, happy to kind of talk and help us when we got lost or ended up in the wrong places. And the food was amazing because we're both vegan and there's a lot of Buddhist influence. So there's a lot of amazing food, like 100 different things to do with tofu than we'd ever even imagined, which was great. And yeah, I think when you think of like recent history in Vietnam, you think of the American Vietnam War, but there's just so much more to the place than that. And you could go down a real historical rabbit hole and dive into all of that stuff. And we did that a little bit. But when you speak to Vietnamese people, they're like, we've been at war like over the last 100 years, loads with different people, like whether it was Cambodia or Vietnam or France. And the American War is just a blip for them. Like it's just, you know, a relatively short time period amongst this last 100 years where they had all of these sort of heavy experiences. So there's so much more to explore and find out. And it's a really interesting way to like understand like the ethos of the people. And I'm sure Carrie and Martin have a perspective on this as well. But I just was really inspired by the optimism and hope and just the kind of head down, crack on, get on with stuff, but do it as friendly and happily as possible. And that was really reflected in like the traffic system, for example. So everybody's getting wherever they need to be as quickly as possible. So there's mopeds everywhere, they're on the pavements, like you can't cross the road like without thinking you're going to get run over, but you get used to it. Everyone's just trying to get everywhere really quickly, but if you get in the way or you make a mistake, people are just really happy and helpful, like, you know, sort you out. So yeah, so favorite places are probably I mean, so many. We loved Halong Bay, where you've got like the limestone mountains, and it just looks like every time you go around this little island, there's going to be a dinosaur or something that just pops out. It's like this really prehistoric landscape. We went into all the areas where the rice paddy fields are, which were incredible, and they've like been designated a UNESCO site just because of the way the rice paddy fields have like contoured all of the hills, and it just looks incredible.
Wow.
Yeah.
So Yulia said that she feels inspired. She's just popped a message in the chat and she said that she's inspired about going to Vietnam now. And that was before you even started talking about dinosaurs.
Yeah.
I've just had my lunch. I'm feeling really hungry after after listening.
We tried Vietnamese food, but not successfuli.
Sounds great. Really amazing. Maybe we can get some tips off you down the line. I've got a question that Yulia sent in on the community, actually. It's a really nice question. She says, that she'd like to know who you dreamed of becoming when you grew up. And she also wants to know if you've got any funny moments from teaching yoga.
Okay, the first part of that, Yulia, is really hard. So I'll come back to that. But funny moments. I've been thinking about this. I think there's always the funny moments that I think every yoga teacher has, maybe, I don't know, where it's not until like an hour or maybe even half a day after class and you're like, oh my goodness, I forgot to do the left side of whatever posture it was. And it just comes to you and you're like, oh, I've left them all imbalanced. So I have that all of the time. But the thing on it, I would say that this is a little bit rude to share, but having met so many of us, of the community on the retreat, I feel like this is probably an okay tone for everybody. The thing that I tell my friends most about yoga teaching is how inappropriate the clothing is that men wear in particular to yoga. So I have to say, I have seen a lot more testicles than I ever needed to. And that's the truth. I don't know if that's because I teach hot yoga, but stuff hangs out, right? And yeah, that's probably is well, like humorous and also gross as it gets.
I think it's good to say it. It's good for people to know that that's if they're a guy going to practice in some tiny speedos, it would be something to be mindful of. And the other part of the question, it's a very different question. But yeah, who did you dream of? Did you imagine that you were going to be teaching sweaty yoga to guys that had their testicles on display? Probably not.
I mean, how weird would it be if I said, "Yep, that was the dream"? I don't know. I think I've always been somebody that's wanted to get the most out of life, like so to try everything, to do as much as possible. And I think that was always the thing that I had when I was a kid. Like I didn't want to, like FOMO is real, right? I didn't want to miss out on anything. Like I didn't ever want to go to bed because I wanted to be up to see what everyone else was doing the whole time. And I think I've carried that through into my adult life. I don't know if that then becomes like personified in a type of person, or a particular person. But I think it's that idea of like grabbing life and go and get it and trying stuff. And when my partner and I decided to like start up our business so that I could do yoga more full time, I think that's part of what it was. It wasn't ever because I didn't like what I did before and didn't like having a 9 to 5 more normal job. It was just more that I wanted to try something different. And I think that fits in with the traveling. And so I just want to experience as much as possible. And obviously that's kind of refined as I've got older in terms of the type of person I want to be and how I want to show up for myself and others. But ultimately, I think it's, to try as much as possible and get as much out of our time here as we can.
Beautiful. What more could we possibly hope for? That's lovely. I think tying in, it ties into that question in a sense. It's a little bit more specific, and it's just a glorious question that Heather sent in. She asks, if you could have a perfect day, what would it look like and what would it include?
I think about this quite a lot actually, because then I challenge myself and I'm like, why aren't you having the perfect day? And I think it's because you read like on Instagram and all these celebrities and they always do this like day in a life of, and I was like, why is that aspirational? Why can't I live that day in a life of myself, the one that I want? So a day in a life for me has to involve some early morning sunshine. And that doesn't have to be like waking up somewhere hot, but it can. We're really lucky. We live in the city centre of Birmingham, but luckily, I don't even know how this happened. All of our windows, we can see trees as we look out, even though there's like flats everywhere. We can just see trees out of all of our windows. So just drawing the curtains of having some sun and greenery is amazing. Ideally, then some stretching and some yoga and a bit of meditation, and then getting out for a walk or a run, and then. Yeah, like the perfect day would involve friends and family. But I know that's not, as easy as as I would like it to be. Everyone has their own responsibilities and stuff. Good food. I had a really nice day on Sunday. There's a big park on the outskirts of Birmingham. Apparently, it's the largest urban park in any European city centre. And it's got wild ponies in it. So we just went and had a lovely walk around the park, kind of got lost in the woods and found the ponies, and just, yeah, like being outside as much as possible. And if it's a day that involves some element and aspect of work, I think I'm really lucky, because everything I get to do now in my sort of job is about helping people have the tools to live the best life that they possibly can, and to make sort of positive changes in their life. So whether that be helping somebody find some mindfulness or meditation or some movement, or it might be something more from the positive psychology side of things, and it's a little bit more practical in terms of like different ways you can live your life. Like I went to a yoga class that I teach the other day, and we'd had a summer break, and one of the women that had been coming really regularly came to the class, and she said, I've had a really life-changing summer because I got made redundant. And she wasn't sad about it. She's like, I've got made redundant. She said, I'm going to use it as a chance to become, to retrain and become a mindfulness teacher. And I was like, wow, that's so amazing. Like, and if in some tiny way, the fact that we'd been doing like these weekly yoga sessions and exploring different ways of meditating, like if in some tiny way that had given her the confidence to turn what could have been like a negative experience into this amazing opportunity, like, seeing that journey for somebody like is massive. So like something like that would be part of the perfect day as well.
Thank you. Let's I will need to have a think about that question. But I loved all of the elements of the things that, I mean, it sounds like a lot of the things that you kind of brought into that answer are things that do happen to you fairly frequently already, which I think is really nice. Like you could have had this, like you could have had a dream that you lived in a different place and lived a completely different life, and it's just really beautiful that, you know, you've obviously got all these incredible things around you that feel nourishing, and yeah, like the joy that you kind of embody as you're speaking about that as a parent, and yeah, and also in terms of guiding people and helping other people find nourishment, you know, that's very, very clearly something that means a lot to you, and that's also something we feel as people that get to practice with you within our little frog project pond.
I can tell you some things I missed out that I do need more of in my life: karaoke, dancing, and getting dressed up.
All very important things as well. I agree. I can't believe it, but we have reached the end of our time. It's just flown by. It's been such a pleasure chatting to you. And we didn't even get to speak about the experience we had at the retreat, but if people are interested, they'll have to sign up for the next one, which is in the pipeline. But yeah, thank you to you, Harriette, for taking the time to chat with me. It's really is a joy, and thank you to everyone that's come along to join us for this little chat, everyone that's sent in questions. I'm already looking forward to next month's chat, so do keep an eye on community for information around that, and keep those questions coming. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Harriette. Thank you.
Thanks, Ollie.
Bye. Oh, Carrie just says quickly, I'd love to do karaoke with you, so maybe we'll have to draw that into the next retreat.
We definitely should, but I warn you, I'm terrible, but I won't give the mic back once it's been given to me.
All right, watch this space for Project Karaoke. See you later. Thank you so much. Bye, everyone. Bye, Harriette.